All right. So June and July, what were the total sales for June? 420.
Yeah, 420,000.
420,000. July.
398,000.
And for credit sales, what was the rule for credit sales?
It's 40% and then 20% in the same month
40%
of total
of total
sales.
sales,
Yeah,
and then 20%
at the same month.
the
70
same month
Yes,
of the sale.
yes. No, 60 is the cash.
Yeah, we're talking about credit
We're talking about the credit. They're asking the credit here, not the cash.
because we have to figure it out. But what did the problem say?
It's still 20% at the same, and 70 at the second month, and 10 at the.
Yeah, credit sales are collected in the same month as the sale. 70% are collected during the first month after the sale, and the remaining 10% are collected in the second month. So what?
So what I did the divided the total sale by 60% cash. I separated that cash from it, and then I have 40% of the total sale for each month, and then I divide those to the 20%.
Okay, I'm sure they didn't get what you were saying, so I'm just gonna try to relay or interpret what you just said.
Okay.
Cash sales is 60%
Yes.
of total sales, right?
Yes.
So that means if all of total sales is 60%, that means the remaining 40% is credit sales.
Credit sale.
So that's where she got the 40%. Okay. Even with that being said, so that means that credit sales for the month of June would be what?
It's 20% of total sale. 40%.
Yeah, normally when I ask stuff like that, I'd be looking for a number.
It's 33,600. It isn't.
What percent are you using?
Of 40%.
Why the full 40%?
No. Because this 40% again be divided by 100%.
Right, we get 60%
Yeah.
is cash.
Yes.
And 40% is the credit part.
Yeah.
But read further. What else did it say?
They say 20% receive at the same month of that 40%.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I will do.
But
it's 160,000 in account receivable.
Yeah, that's credit.
Yeah, that's credit from that 160,000. 20% should be received in June. So that's how I got it.
For June and July, so
We're in June.
Yes.
the question is for July again?
No, I have
the question is for what is the credit sales?
33,600.
It's not 33,000.
So how much?
What was the amount you just said to me?
It's 160,000.
And where did you get that from?
I get that from I divided that the wholesale, the entire sale for the June by 60% cash and 40% account receivable.
So
and
you did 420,000 times 40%.
Yeah.
Okay. So what about July?
In July, I have still 70% of the June.
How much?
It's 117,600.
Where'd you get? So
168.
Why are you using 70%?
Because I am receiving 70% of 168,000.
Of 168,000?
Yes,
Yeah, 160.
that's what my account receivable is.
No,
Yes, it is.
168,000 is what you collected for June. We're in July now.
No, we didn't collect it. We just collected 20% of that.
No, y'all are missing it. You are missing it.
We have to multiply by.
You collected 40% in the first month. That's what that 168,000 is.
Yeah, that's the whole.
40% of 428,000, right? So that means how much is uncollected? What percentage is uncollected here?
60%.
No.
I'm sorry, it was 30%.
Why 30%?
Because you collected 20% the first month, the same month.
It says right here in the problem.
You do 70% of the second month.
It says right here in the problem, 10% is collected in the second month. And which month is this?
It will be June, July, August.
No.
Oh,
If they say the remaining 10% is collected in the second month, then that means for the first month, how much is uncollected?
what is the first one?
But here,
June. Are y'all reading the same thing that I'm reading?
It
But
says
the June
20%
is,
the
you
same
see-
month.
you see the.
I think y'all are misinterpreting what they're trying to get you to do. You're totally misinterpreting it. The first time they said cash collected is 60%, right?
Yeah,
So that means 40% is left of 100, right?
yes.
That's the amount that's collected in the first month. And why do I say that?
It's not collected because it says it's collected.
Answer my question. I'm telling you, that's what it is. 60% goes towards cash. The other remaining 40%, which you told me this is what it was, 40% of 420,000 June sales. Why are we saying that it is 40%?
It is 40%.
Besides the fact that 40 being subtracted from 100 leaves 60% cash sales. Think about it for a minute. Read it again. How much percent is still uncollected after June?
10%.
Why 10% to 30?
That's what it says, the remaining 10% on the first and the second.
Just fast forward to July. What percentage of that 398 is credit? Tell me the percent, not the number.
20%.
Explain to me why it's 20%, other than you see it there.
Because it says 20% are collected in the same month of the sale.
But 20% of 398 is not. It's not 20%.
Can I give you what my total is and tell me right or wrong? So you're not basically I got 229,000 for you. No. Because in June you got 20% of the total credit sales, which is 40% of that, which is 168. That's paid in June. So it leaves 80%. 70% of that is paid in July. and the other 10% is gonna carry over to August, which we're not dealing with right now. And then in July, we have the 20% of the credit sales for July that's gonna be paid, because the rest of the 70% is gonna go to July, and the other 10% is gonna go to September. So we got 20% of July credit sales and 70% of June credit sales that's gonna be collected in July.
Yeah, that's what I,
That's what I think.
That's what
Okay. This time around, when you say it slow.
Okay.
Start from the beginning.
Okay, so the credit sales are broken up into three sections:
Mm-hmm.
20%, 70%, and 10%.
Uh-huh.
So the credit sales, 20% of the full amount of 168,000 is gonna be paid in June. So that leaves 80% that's carrying over to the two following months.
Stop.
No?
As she talks, I want everybody to calculate.
Okay.
It's not gonna make sense to you listening to it. I keep asking what percent is uncollected, right?
All right, so we have the 40% of the total sales period,
Total sales of how much?
of 168,000. But the total sales was the $420,000 for June.
And how much of that was collected for credit?
168,000 is 40%.
Uh-huh.
Okay, that is going to be broken up into 3 months. 20% is collected in the present month of June,
Which was for what sales?
which was of the credit sales. So there's 20
What month sales?
for June
June. Mm-hmm.
times 20%. That was 33,600.
Which is what Karina was saying. Uh-huh.
Okay, so now we have 80% left. 70% is going to carry over to July.
Correct.
So
Because
we're
the
gonna,
book, the problem said what?
say what?
What did the problem say about the 70%?
70% will be paid in the following month.
Correct.
Okay, so we have the 168,000 yen times 70%, which is $117,600.
Yeah.
That's gonna be paid in July. The remaining 10% is gonna carry over to August. We won't collect it. Okay, and for July, the total cash sales is 398,000. 40% of that is 159,200.
Uh-huh.
yeah,
Okay, for the month of July, we're keeping 20% of that of the credit sales is gonna be paid in July, which added up to
31,000.
$31,840. So it's the 20% of June and the 70% of the 20% of July and the 70% carried over from June is gonna be paid in July.
You done?
Because the rest of it, the 80% left from July is gonna carry over to August and September. And one thing we don't know is the 10% that was left from August, because we don't have it. I mean, from May, but we don't have.
How much did you say was uncollected for June?
Uncollected 80% of it was,
It wasn't no 80%.
was-
How much was uncollected for June?
was uncollected. We still have the 10% left from June. which
No, I'm
was-
talking about for June. What's the
Oh, for June?
uncollected percent?
The uncollected percent was, it's hard to say that it's 80% of the 40%.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
It is, you know what I'm saying, but
130.
You want the dollar amount?
No, I want a percent.
A percent, 70%.
I'm just really trying to figure out how are y'all missing this? You done had since last week when I saw you to get this. It's literally right there in your face. Literally, I'm asking what percent did we not collect in June?
We didn't collect.
We did collect
80% of the credit sale.
80% of the credit
80% of
sales we did collect.
Where are you getting 80%? Where are you getting 70%?
It is in the book.
That's not, you're not critically thinking. That's not what they're saying.
Okay.
I just want you to read it and just conceptualize it for a minute. It's so easy for you to throw those numbers out, but that's not it. What percent is uncollected? You need to look at what you did collect or what you just told me you collected. What's remaining? Why 10%?
Because 70% is collected and 20% is collected. Since we're talking about July, July is only 10% of June. From June.
Cynthia?
We already collected 20% of the same month in June and 70% in July. And what was uncollected is 10% for June.
What's uncollected for July?
For July, uncollected is
80%.
80%.
That was the only one you were sure of. He just explained to you where the 10% came from. Uncollected is 10%. Do y'all need him to explain it to you once more?
No, but I thought you were talking about what's uncollected in the month of June. We knew
I
that
just need to
10%
know
was carried
uncollected
over to August.
after.
Okay. The 10% is carried over to August, because the 70% of that is gonna be.
And you
carried
said
over.
that, but when I kept saying, well, what's the percent? I heard 80. I heard 80 of 40, which I don't even know.
What was
I don't even,
collected?
that's impossible.
What we're supposed to collect was in July, after July is 70% from July,
Well, actually gonna be 80%
because
in
that's the
July,
second month.
because 10% of July is carried over to September, it's actually gonna be 80% of July.
Over to August. So all of that. To say percent uncollected, 10%. And 10% of 168,000 is what?
16,800.
What's the credit sales for July?
The complete amount was 159,200
Which is
Yeah.
40%
of the total sales.
of total sales. And how much of that is uncollected? What's the remaining uncollected percent?
It's 80%.
80% of 159,200 is,
238.
you know what?
Sorry. 127,350.
So that means total amount uncollected. Towards how much?
144,160. You know, it's the wording of the question, really.
Yeah.
Because you
Is
think
it
that
the
you add up
wording?
what you collected, but
Yeah.
really you're asking what we're gonna be left with.
Is it the wording or is it just the way you read it? Because we both know the answer
Yeah.
to that. It's just the way you read it. And for a class like this,
Internet's back up?
yes, thank you.
Absolutely.
For a class like this, it's gonna take you to think like that. I realize sometimes the answer is just so obvious to you. But if you haven't noticed by now, with us coming to the midpoint of the semester, this is a beast within itself. We call it managerial accounting, but truth be told, it's more so cost accounting, which it just requires a lot more. Before I go any further, do we understand what just occurred in those last 20 minutes? If we don't, say we don't, because it needs to be hashed out, because if you see it on your homework, then what happens? If you can't do it. You're gonna use all your check my words and then you're gonna panic and send me an email and say, I just can't figure it out. So if it's something about this that is misunderstood as far as percent uncollected, or even the credit sales amount and how we got to those amounts. Okay, so I take that as no. Quick study 22-6. Use the following information to prepare a cash budget for the month ended on March 31st for Gato Merchandising Company. The budget should show expected cash receipts and cash disbursements for the month of March and the balance expected on March 31st. So preparing a cash budget, what do you need first? Or what should I
Beginning
do?
cash balance.
You said beginning cash balance,
Yeah.
which is how much?
22,000.
Okay. What's next?
Cash interest from sale.
How much?
300,000.
Okay.
Total cash available.
Cash available.
Yeah.
Total cash available. How do we get that amount?
We added those.
Okay. What's next? You said purchases?
Yeah.
Okay.
140,000.
All right.
Salary, 80,000.
Salaries. Okay.
And other,
All right.
other that expense, 45,000.
All right. What's next?
Total cash payment,
Uh-huh.
265,000.
All right.
We subtract that from the,
You said 265?
yes. Should be another at the end, the loan repayment of the preliminary balance or
So what, Mr.
Oh, yes.
You repaid a loan? Is that what you're saying? Yeah, that's cash related, right?
but in the book they added later,
They said what in the book now?
they added later after the total cash payment and then they say preliminary balance and then loan repayment, they added like that.
I'm confused. Where do you see they added it later? Because it doesn't tell us what date it was
Yeah, I just,
added, it just said cash repayment of bank loan.
okay.
Yeah, I think you can do it.
Okay, because I just looked at that example here in the book.
What is what page is it on?
That's 918,
You said 918?
yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying, additional loan?
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah, but they gave you 3 months here, so under that circumstance, yes,
No.
it would be the month after.
No.
But considering that you're only dealing with March.
Yeah, we can just add it.
Mhm. So it was 265 at first, right?
Mm-hmm.
So 285.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what do I do next?
You subtract the total cash, I already got total cash payment.
You said 87,000,
Yes.
and this is the cash available March. Alright. That was less painful.
Yeah.
No,
But in homework it's hard. We have a lot of months and then
a lot of those first problems that we did.
yeah.
22-8 is the next one.
Yeah.
Forest Company manufactures watches and has a just-in-time policy that ending inventory must equal 10% of next month's sales. Oh my.
Yeah. That's a hard one.
It estimates that October's actual ending inventory will consist of 40,000 watches. November and December sales are estimated to be 400,000 and 350,000 watches respectively. Compute the number of watches to be produced that would appear on the company's production budget for the month of November. Okay. So what do you start with for a production budget?
Ending inventory.
In the inventory?
Yeah.
Why in the inventory?
Because you have to figure out.
Do y'all have an example of a production budget in your chapter?
Yeah. Is it budget? Budget?
Mm-hmm.
It's production budget.
Yeah, the production budget.
Yeah,
What do we start with on there? Everybody wake up. The more participation, the quicker we leave.
This on page 920, the first, the next period, sales.
Next,
Period, budget sales.
so next period sales are what? How much? 350,000. And then what do we do?
times 10.
What's the 10% called? Ratio of inventory. 10%, and then what? What are we doing with this?
The budget and the inventory.
How do we get it? Multiply 10%, 35,000, and then what?
The 10% add the budget sales for the period.
How much is that?
400,000.
Okay.
Required units of available production.
Okay, what's next? Which was how much? 40,000. All right, which is called what? So we'll I'll leave this here for a few minutes. Does everybody have this, or you still writing? Did you all check your midtime break? One yes. Ashley, why not? You don't have to look at your midtime breaks. How you know how you doing in the class now? You don't care?
I started, checking my, Vanna wasn't even open.
Yeah, looks like we're having a lot of problems with that though. But check your midtime breaks. That's used as a reinforcement to make sure that you know where you are in your classes, to see how you can improve. I put the announcement out on the front page last week telling you to check the midterm grade. Just so you can see where you are and before you panic and decide that you're going to drop the class, because I know how people do. I would prefer if you just come and speak with me first before you decide to do that. Because if you're ready for the semester to be over, if you drop, and then you're going to go through 15 more weeks of this. And it might not be with me. So it's much, it behooves you rather to just come to me first. Because a lot of times, if your grade is lower, it can come from test grade, it can come from homework grade, things like that. So, you know, just come see me is all I'm saying. All right, 22-9. Refer to information from Quick Study 22-8. Forest Company assigns variable overhead at a rate of $1.50 per unit of production. Fixed overhead equals $4,600,000 per month. Prepare a factory overhead budget for November. What do we start with? Budgeted production. Come on, factory overhead budget is more than 2 students in here. If you have an example in your book, just go to the example in your book and tell me what we start with.
That was wrong, what I put. $9.1. Budgeted production and that's what I put. $9.1.
What?
That's wrong, that's what I put.
You're looking for a factory overhead budget. Is that what it is?
And your question is what do we start with, right?
Yeah. What did you say?
Budgeted production unit. And then it has a month.
Right.
Or are you looking for a number?
I am, but not with that question. Let me rephrase it. Quick Study 22-8. What did we leave off with?
395.
What's the label? How much was it?
395.
What's next after that?
Factory overhead rate.
Factory overhead rate. Fa- 150. What do we do? Multiply.
Yeah.
What do we get?
$592,500.
What is this called?
Budget ever overhead.
What's next?
Budgeted fixed overhead.
Which is how much?
There was the 4,600,000.
What am I doing? Adding, subtracting this? What? Subtracting?
You added.
How much is it?
Like the flat on the actual tracking.
Oh, we adding in fixed cost and variable cost.
105,500.
Okay.
Okay, what the total is.
Yeah, because we're trying to get overhead, and what goes in the overhead? Both fixed
And variable.
and variable. So how much was it?
105,500.
There's no way.
5,192,500.
And what is this called?
Budgeted total overhead.
Ooh, I'll be so glad when Thanksgiving get here. All right, quick study 22-10. Great sales miniature digital cameras for $250 each. 1,000 units were sold in May, and it forecasts 4% growth in unit sales each month. Determine A, the number of camera sales, B, the dollar amount of camera sales for the month of June. What kind of budget do you think you need to do for that? Out of all the budgets that make up a master budget, what budget do you think you need to do for that one? Sales budget. Sales budget, yeah. So what do we have going on? What do we start with? For a sales budget. What do we start with for a sales budget?
Prior production.
Prior sales. How much are they? 1,000.
Yeah.
And then what?
Plus growth, the percentage of growth.
What's the growth?
It's 4%.
So that equals how much?
1,040.
Huh?
4% is 40 and 40 is 40.
$40.
Yeah.
40.
Yes.
$40.
Yeah, it is $40.
$40. Adding the two. So that is called the what? Projected June sales. Then what's next? Hmm? Which is how much? Am I adding this? How much is it? Huh?
260,000.
And that's gonna be projected sales. How many more do we have?
One. One. I thought we just do it.
Okay, well. Quick study 22-11, refer to quick study 22-10. Grace pays the sales manager a monthly salary of $6,000 and a commission of 8% of camera sales in dollars. Prepare a selling expense budget for the month of June. So now we're doing a selling expense budget. So you start at
260,000.
budgeted sales.
260,000.
$260,000 and then what?
Then it's commission percent. 8%.
All right. How much is it?
20,800.
What is that called?
Sales commission.
And then what do we do?
Manager's salary.
Manager's salary, which is how much?
6,000.
Do I add this?
Yes.
All right, which equals what? 26,800, and this is called the what?
Projected selling.
Projected selling expense. All right, last one for the goal. Quick study 22-12. Refer to information from quick study 22-10, assume 60% of sales. So gross sales are for cash, the remaining 40% are credit sales. These customers pay in the month following the sale. Complete the budgeted cash receipts for June. Okay, so that I don't make it harder on you. What number do we already have?
The June total fee,
Which is how much?
260,000.
All right. And then what budget are we doing?
Cash
Cash
budget.
budget.
It's on 918.
A cash budget? Maybe a cash budget.
It says, yeah, cash budget.
Cash budget.
Budget cash,
Cash receipts, you mean?
that's what, it says
It says
cash.
cash budget.
Nothing on that says cash receipt.
That's what,
Wait, at the end of this portion, the budgeted cash.
No, I'm talking about the budget as the example in your book. What is the budget called?
They say cash.
Our cash budget.
Cash budget and cash receipts budget is two different budgets. So, are you doing a cash budget or a cash receipts budget?
cash receipts.
Okay. So you started off with June sales of 260,000. And then, what do you need to do next? What budget, what page is this example of a budget on?
918.
So go to 918 and look for a budgeted cash receipt.
It says expected.
It says expected cash.
Yeah, that confused me. The budgeted sales were 260,000 from the previous budget, right?
Yeah.
What comes after that?
Ending account receivable,
which is how much?
60%.
Why 60%?
40%.
Why 40?
Sales are remaining 40% of it.
Right. 60% of it was how much? Was what?
The sale.
Was it credit?
Sales target.
Was it credit or cash?
Yeah.
Cash, so that means it says 40% of it was credit, right?
yes,
260,000 times 40% is how much?
4,000.
So um, okay, what do I do at this point? Do I add this? What do I do?
What's the subtraction that you find out how much was the cash?
How much is it?
156,000.
Now take 260,000 and multiply that by 60% and tell me what you get.
156,000.
Everybody understands, right? All right, what's next? What's next?
Cash and credit. Cash sales, do we have to do that? Cash?
We just did cash sales.
Okay,
Okay.
so
Collection of
prior funds received.
So collections of prior month, which is how much? Okay.
You gonna go with the same percentage?
Well, what do you have to work with?
It says in May, that was
Pay the month
$250,000.
following the sale.
All right, so
So collections of prior.
we're going by, is it 10 or 11? So we're going by 10. 250 times 1,000, 250,000, and that would be the sales for what?
For May,
For May. Um,
same.
so aren't we collecting from the previous month? Isn't that what you just told me right up there? Collection from prior month?
Mhm.
May comes before June?
Yeah.
Make sure my mind's right. 250,000, how much of that did we collect?
$156,000.
Of the 250,000 of May sales.
Okay, it says we customers pay in the month following.
Yeah.
So the
We're in
40%,
June now.
the 40% of May.
Yeah.
The
So 250,000 times 40% gives us what?
100,000.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna put here May sales. Times 40% equals 100,000. What else do I need to do from there? Do add, what do we do?
Yeah, the 156 to the 100,000.
Which equals what?
257.
Which is
Total cash collected to the clerk.
total cash collected or total cash receipts?
Total cash collected.